Recorded with Mr. Joe Oltmann on Monday, August 5th. Is it Monday? Yes, Monday, August 5th, 2024 at 2:09 p.m. Eastern Time. Mr. Oltmann's been on here several times before in his podcast, the Conservative Daily Podcast. That link is in the description, as well as his company, DCF Guns, as well as his bakery, DCF Buns, which I think is the funniest fucking thing in the world. Um, but yeah, so we've been doing nonstop well, not me. I've been doing nonstop Trump assassination attempt videos with SF guys, Delta guys, all that good stuff. And I'm kind of getting bored of it. So I figured we would talk about the Pentagon sending 4,000 Marines over to the Middle East, and I believe the Abraham Lincoln was the next aircraft carrier strike group. And that's so I made that thumbnail, I think, like yesterday or the day before, and then this morning waking up and seeing that apparently it is just the absolute monetary apocalypse right now. So it's a golden corral of negative news for whatever anyone wants to jump in on. So the man, the myth, the legend is back. So Mr. Altman, which one do you want to jump into? Them trying to blow Trump's head off, war in the Middle East, the market collapsing, or are all of them somehow tied in together?
They're all tied in together. I need to tell you about a couple of things. One, I was in
Yes.
prayer with David Clements, and we were sitting on a call on Friday. And in the middle of that call, where we're actually closing in prayer, um, I had this thing that came, this vision that came into my head, and it was the craziest thing ever. And I just saw millions of people on the streets, and that they were literally standing up against what can only be described as organized crime. Yeah, I was kind of shuddered by it. Well, this morning when I woke up, it's like 4 o'clock in the morning, and I shot up and I started doing the math, looking at everything that's happened in the United States and across the world. And I was like, they actually know, like, we're fighting things that they know are absolutely absurd. Like, a man can't be a woman can't be a man. We know that to be a fact. This grooming and this ideology for chasing LGBTQA, they know that 99% of the population is not any of those things. And so they create this rift and division of those that would, the haves and the have nots when it comes to just basic principles of ethics and morals. And they're activating what we call unhumans. Jack Persobic and Josh Lysick wrote this book called Unhumans, and not inhumans, but unhumans, people that literally would burn everything down. And these are sociopaths and psychopaths, most of it caused by, let's look at a connection. And you're going to go, Joe, you're pushing everything, you're consolidating everything. And, there's a saying that they say in college now that correlation does not equal causation, causation does not equal correlation. That's actually not true.
Yeah.
That's not true. That's a lie. They just made that up. Now, there's no scientific deal that would say that correlation does not equal causation, and there's parallels to what causes something is correlated to that. So we could look at autism. It went from 1 in 40,000 to 1 in 20,000 in 1986. It started this rapid incline to 1 in as little as 1,600, then 1 in 900. And then they came out with a spectrum to say that everyone's on this spectrum because they have to be special. And then they created these new classifications of autism. And then you're seeing this kind of run towards justification for some of the things that they've done to people in our society. Just like they've justified wars that we've had overseas. We can start in 2001, what happened with the World Trade Center. I lost friends in that deal at the World Trade Center and the bombings and the attack on American soil. And so I look at it a little differently because in 2002, we went overseas into the Middle East, and we said weapons of mass destruction. We're first going to enter into Iraq, and then we entered into Afghanistan. And there was no real parallels as to why we entered those two areas, other than there was massive amounts of resources that were being discovered in those areas. And there never was any weapons of mass destruction. And so people have kind of walked past the fact that we spent trillions of dollars in 20 years there. And in those 20 years, we had countless men and women who died in these wars, and all to find out there was never any weapons of mass destruction. And if you want to fast all the way forward to what happened just less than a month ago, the masterminds behind that, after sitting in jail for 20 years, who have never seen a trial yet, then says we're going to give them a plea deal that says that you'll never ever be you'll never be put to death. You can live out the remainders of your life in custody in a jail. And so you look at it and go, wait, hold on a second. Weapons of mass destruction. Okay, that wasn't true. Masterminds behind 2001. We're just going to forgive the fact that 3,000 people, the blood of 3,000 people are on the heads of these masterminds for 9/11. And now you're going to give them a free pass and say, you just live out the rest of your life in a prison. Well, Tom, tell me how much sense that makes to you. Tell me how much sense that makes if we just stop there, right?
If you just put a pin in it there, you would imagine that they would, for any of this to make sense, you would imagine that they would have to have given up something for it to be worth. That's the only way it could make sense.
So I woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning and I started to just chart it out. And I wish I could show you the charts. It's unbelievable. I started charting out all the things that they've done to us, from COVID to what they did in stealing elections, to when it traced all the way back to 2004, when Clint actually got up and started talking about the fact that he was able to adversely affect the outcome of an election and change the trajectory of that election. Then you have other people that stood up, and you have Chris York, who used to work for Sequoia, who went on when he was told to just just bragging about the fact they went into a system, changed the election results, and got back out without anybody knowing they were there. Now let's just tie in all the rest of the stuff. Let's tie in this LGBTQIA, which is anyone that accepts, so now they bring in all these people under this LG, whatever you want to call it, right? So the 1% then balloons to 10%. 2007, really the launch of social media. First you had MySpace, then you had the DARPA project. DARPA project was turned over to a Harvard guy who said that he made it in, yeah, right? I mean, they made it in their dorm room. That turned out to be a lie. That wasn't true. They made an entire movie on something that wasn't true. Gave them Facebook. Facebook launches. You have other social platforms that start to pop up everywhere. Billions of dollars gets poured into this platform of propaganda, which then was used against the people. Now that started in 2007. So just after the election, they started seeing people coming out, starting to tell the truth. Those truths started to rise. So then they started just cutting people off and taking away opportunities from people on the platform. Fast forward even further, we have countless amounts of information that gets put out there on these social platforms. They all start to consolidate, get closer and closer together. You have Google, you have Yahoo. Google then buys out YouTube. There's a consolidation of power and it becomes the data. Then let's talk about data. So then they come out and say, we want privacy, privacy, privacy. They go to the American people and say, everyone wants to sell your information. Consolidation starts to get tighter and tighter and tighter. They're not saying consolidation on the big boys that are out there, the trillion-dollar industries such as Apple and Google and those things. They all can share in those piles. It limits the ability for other people to do good for SMBs and community-based businesses, again, giving rise to or giving free passes to bigger business. Now, at the same time all of this is happening, here's stuff that nobody knows about here that's happening overseas. Sudan, you have Susan Rice, another player that's in the mix right now, that is one of the players responsible for the propaganda that's being pushed on the American people, goes and says there's genocide, ethnic cleansing over in Darfur. John Morris, John Pendergast, both come together. They do this thing called Save Darfur, bilk the American people out of billions of dollars. Then we have the problem that happened in Haiti. You have the Clinton Foundation comes in, bilks them of billions of dollars. Not $1 ends up down in Haiti. You can start to see over and over and over again the trust of the American people on people doing what is right gets eroded. There was never any genocide or ethnic cleansing in Sudan, but they found this oil area in the Abyei district between North and South Sudan. And then all of a sudden it became a Christian war, which never existed. There was never any Christians in South Sudan of any consequence. It was a tribal environment. So every time we turn around, we have this intelligence apparatus that's overseas creating all of these different wars and interfering with the sovereignty of other nations. People are dying all over the place. We're disrupting and destroying entire economies. Look at what we did in Argentina. Look at what we did in Venezuela. Venezuela being probably one of the most stark reminders of how you can destroy a society in a very short period of time. This is the third wealthiest country in the world. Now, the wealth didn't go away, Tommy. It didn't go away. It's still there, but it's now going into the pockets at a discount, the pockets of rich oligarchs, not just in the United States, but around the world, that are causing and creating all these different points of confusion globally. Now let's bring it back to the United States. Let's talk about the assassination of President Trump. You have the Secret Service, you have DEI initiatives. They want to tell you that you have to have equity and inclusion, and that everything that we're doing right now is to actually rise up Black and brown Americans. At the same time, Black and brown Americans don't get opportunity. That's reserved for the 20 million people that have no sort of tie to this country and no ability to understand our culture. They're given $3, $4, $5, $6, $7,000 a month while they step over the bodies of Black and brown people, mostly in inner cities that are controlled by Democrats. And you'd say, okay, well, they just don't have access to opportunity. Well, that degrading environment then has this shining beacon of light that shows up in the middle of it. It's called Planned Parenthood, an organization that was caused or created by Margaret Sanger, who's a woman who wanted to destroy minorities, wanted to destroy eugenics, right? So this is where it all starts, and you start bringing in eugenics. Now you can trace that all the way back to what this kind of secret society has done in order to control and enslave people in our country. And you start looking at it all, then starts to make sense. 56 cents on every dollar goes to the government. We are ants on an ant farm. You have the IRS that comes in and says you're not paying enough, and starts sucking up the proceeds from average everyday Americans, saying you didn't pay us the $3,000, so now it's $500,000 7 years later. Oh, and by the way, they then feed drugs into the Black and brown community, creating an opportunity for them to go sell drugs. Now, then they pass laws on going to sell drugs and saying, hey, look, be our collectors for us. They have a drug dealer that gets $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, $1 million sitting in the bank, cash that's sitting in a big vault room, driving around in a Bentley while they're doling out drugs that are supplied by the federal government that are let to come across the border by other gangs and groups down there. They have their organized crime inside of government here today. And at the end of it, when that drug dealer gets too big, they just walk in and say, yeah, we're going to arrest you. And because the proceeds under the government go back to the government, that person became a tax collector to collect cash and then give them a 10, 15-year sentence. And when they're done with them through this incarceration process, they get put right back on the streets to do it all over again.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that is happening right now, Tommy, is caused by this apparatus, this organized crime inside of our government. And the stealing of elections allows them to put very weak people in those positions, pass whatever laws they want to pass. They've been stealing elections for decades. And then in walks someone like Soros, now Alex Soros, used to be George Soros, World Economic Forum. Then they take people from the Democrat Party and the Republican Party. They march them in to these World Economic Forums, gives them a stand, makes them look like they're just among the elite. They come back here and they do the biddings of these lobbyist groups and special interests to make us eat bugs, get rid of beef, make sure that we play with batteries, even though we don't have the capacity to actually to sustain battery technology, all while destroying everything about our society and make us want to fight each other over things that are absolutely ridiculous. Like a man can't be a woman can't be a man. That's ridiculous. We're fighting over ridiculous things while they steal and rob the American people of the spirit of our country. And that's why we're here today. Anyone that knows basic economics or basic math knows that they have created this problem because they want to destroy and eat and take from the American people what is not theirs, so that they can have their elitist little mob over here and destroy the middle class here. And then you have the haves and the have-nots, because that was the plan all along.
How does one move from being proactive from being reactive? Because everything you're mentioning, there are all these things that happen, and then we have to react to. No weapons of mass destruction, or plea deal, or trannies in the streets, or illegal immigrants coming over it's all, you're on the back foot. You're always reacting. And so, I mean, you could say the Trump assassination attempt. You could say, us potentially getting pulled into a war with Iran for Israel. And now we're looking at the market crash. Today is Monday, August 5th, for future listeners, 2024. these are all things where we're on the back foot, and it's better than nothing to acknowledge that it's happening, and that this isn't all chaotic, that these are all problems being introduced. But if we wanted to eventually get to a point where we're not just reacting, but actually going on the offensive, how does one even begin to do that? How does one begin to even like right now, the market crashing is the newest reactionary. Everyone's now, how do I log in? How do I sell this? How do I buy that? What's Warren Buffett doing? And by the time we get any sort of bearing on it, another thing pops up. So how do we even do that?
Well, I think we have to slow down. We have to
Yeah,
slow down and say we've had enough. I'm not interested in giving the government one more dollar for taxes. Not one.
correct.
Not interested. And if you want to choke off this illegal cabal, they get a vig on everything. Google gets a vig on you if you want to actually do business and be seen on the internet. They try to tell us that the most relevant data shows up, but that's not true, Tommy. That's not true. They get to pick who the winners and losers are, and we end up on the short stick of everything because they get the propaganda machine, which is the mainstream media, that goes out and then says, hey, let's lobby to silence all of these people. So it really is just a disgusting display of what already could be considered a communist or socialist environment. We've been heading this way for decades. But the reality of it is that if we don't get to the part where we say we've had enough, if we don't basically say we're done, get rid of this woke mentality and start to eradicate all the evildoers that are mostly tied to the intelligence community that's been doing this around the world for decades. That is our problem. We have apparatuses that we have no control over inside of our government. These are black ops, fully funded organizations that are going out and doing really terrible things. It used to be done to people that were overseas. Now it's being done to people right here in our own country. And they do it under this guise of democracy. I mean, tell me, there's more fentanyl in this country, could kill every American in this country. That's how much fentanyl comes across the borders every year, right?
Correct.
Largest killer of children, age 18 to 25. I still call them children because in today's age, those aren't men. Those aren't men and women. Those are children. They act like children. They run around on TikTok, getting all the news in 30 seconds, talking about how life is so unfair. It's the most egregious thing I've ever seen in my life. Those are not men and women. But 18 to 25, the largest killer of those is fentanyl overdose. Well, how do you get rid of it? How do you get rid of something that is state sponsored, that's sponsored by our own government and has no points of accountability or any consequences for the behavior that they actually push upon us as Americans? How do you do it? You can't. You can't. You have to be willing as a society to stand up and see it first and then say, look, I don't care if you're a Democrat or Republican. I could care less. I don't want illegals in my country. I don't want a Planned Parenthood on every corner. I don't want to pay 56 cents on every dollar. I don't want to make sure that the government is the only one that gets to eat. The people that work for the government, they're the only ones that are not adversely affected by a market downturn. And in essence, that's the case. Everyone else is hurt except for those people that work in government and are selected through an election process that is fraudulent more often than not. I just hit you with a lot, huh?
No, no, no. I love it. You got the download. Those are the best moments when you're in prayer, meditation, and all of a sudden you get you see the big picture.
Yeah.
It seems like, I mean, obviously Trump wasn't supposed to survive, and you can
Oh,
kind
he
of
was.
start to, yeah, you can start to see how this is all tied in. Trump, it was supposed to be Iran that did it, right? I mean, as the narrative. Hence the 4,000 Marines over to the Middle East, another aircraft carrier strike group. Today, the market. We got two of the three. We got two of the three uppercuts. They were supposed to hit us with all three. How does this keep escalating? Is obviously it's by design. Is there any way to push back? So like when I see something about like the UK, on first gut instinct is like it's awesome. They're sticking up for their country. They're screw these people
No,
that you
no,
know.
no, no, they're not though. Tommy, they're not
Okay,
sticking
all
up for
right,
the people that are getting arrested are people that have been historically from the UK. The people not getting arrested are the ones that are burning buildings and burning cars. The people that they are holding accountable are the people that are UK citizens,
Oh
not the
yeah,
people that are immigrants.
yeah.
So there isn't a standing up right now that's happening. There are people being pushed back into a fearful position, much like they did in World War II and World War I. We're on the precipice of the same thing right now. They're going to steal the election in November. Count on it. They don't think that that's going to happen. I know that that's going to happen. And let me tell you something else. If it was true that these radical leftists were even a small segment of our society, I think that you have the people that hold on to those people, which is probably 10 to 15%. And then you have 10% of our population, which are the undesirables, I'll call, right? They're just ugly, fat people that just frankly, just want everything given to them. And they're the most miserable people that you're going to find in our society. Those are the ones that are always calling tolerance, 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 when frankly, they're just demonic almost.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a small part of our population. If that's not true, then why do they have tens of millions of bots on social platforms all the time? Why is it there's a lawsuit against Facebook right now for 400% fraudulent, 400% increase in the fraudulent nature of people directly related to their ad campaigns? In other words, 1 in 5 people that you touch on an ad campaign on Facebook or Instagram is real. The other 4 out of the 5 are fake. They're bots. And so given that information, does it change your perception now over what you're seeing on even the social platforms or in the mainstream media?
Yes.
This is what we have to do. We have to be honest with ourselves about what's in front of us, what tools they're using, and then just go out there in the market and talk to people who are not just like us, that maybe have a difference of opinion based on the fact that they've been fed these lies for so long. It's like Stockholm syndrome. I'm here to help. That's the words that Reagan said, if you should be afraid if the government comes in and says, I'm here to help. But what are the radical leftists and what are they doing? They're parroting this one word. What's that word?
Weird.
No, that's what they say we are, as they walk around and cutting their wieners off and doing all sorts of weird stuff, right? What's the one word they're trying to protect?
I don't know.
Democracy.
Oh yeah. Democracy's at stake.
But who started it?
Yeah.
Who started we have to protect democracy? Who started it?
The Biden administration or the intelligence communities?
It started with people like Reagan talking about our democracy as a country when we went in and we went after Middle East targets in the early 80s. But then George Bush started really hammering democracy. And then Clinton talked about democracy. And then George Bush Jr. says democracy. And then what happened after him? You had Obama that talked about democracy, saving democracy. Tommy, we're not a democracy. We're a constitutional republic. Democracy is mob rule. But if you control the elections, then you control and you actually do have mob rule. And so everything that they're telling us is real. It's actually what they want. They want mob rule. They want to be able to have a small group of people that under this guise or this facade have full control over every part of your life. First, they came for Diet Cokes and big gulps. Right?
Correct.
And this is why they've canceled me on every platform. This is why they hate me.
Well, this is why I keep having you back on, because I don't want to talk to anybody else who I just want to talk about the we're saving democracy. Shut up. You shut up. It kind of seems like that they're just gonna bum rush it through. That they're trying to they know that the I guess the facade of all of this is skin deep. So it feels like they're trying to hit you with like a 1-2 punch. World War III, get drafted, and you kind of hope you're drafted because there's going to be no money left anywhere for anyone else to make. That kind of feels like what it's going to be.
Well, I don't want to be the Debbie Downer.
Sure.
But I do want to say that we are decades in the making of a revolt against this organized crime and syndication of institutional slavery, because that's really what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I've been blessed. I think that if I were to pick up the phone and call them and say, all right, listen, why don't you just give me a free pass? I will never talk about any of it ever again. Let me go do my work on the tech side. And I think that they would probably say, okay, give
Hmm.
Oltmann whatever he wants. I think I could do that.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I know that they've tried to do that. So I know that I could get that done.
Yeah.
Right. But then I have to walk away from character. I just walk away from the things that define me by God. And I'd have to capitulate to evil. And that really is what we've been doing. We have been capitulating to evil for a long time. We have lacked courage. And the mainstream media and these radical leftists, these radical journalists, and they use the same tools. Even the rhinos on the Republican side, they use the same tools in order to attack anybody that goes against or threatens their power structure or their ability to get the money. They do the same thing. So the American people are going to have to stand up and say, look, we've had enough. We've had enough. We're not interested in paying your tax anymore. Tommy, if you put it all together, if you go on the roads and they want to expand roads, now roads are supposed to be paid for by certain tax benefits, tariffs, things like that we have on a state by state basis, correct?
Hmm.
All right. Then why is it that every major highway and road out there that now expands their roads make them tollways? So you can get home early if you pay us, right?
Correct.
So they use your money to actually pay it, or they sell it to a foreign entity like the Australian private equity firm who gets a couple $1 billion, puts it in the United States, and then makes a 20-to-1 IRR, right? Not 20%, but a 20-to-1. In other words, 20 times IRR. That's their return on investment, right? And yet we're supposed to sit back here and just continue to watch new sidewalks get created by people who are elitist in order to take more of our hard-earned money. All while telling us you can't drive gas cars. Gas is bad. Oh, and we have carbon taxes that we want to pass on to you. And oh yeah, you know, your taxes on your home, yeah, we're going to double that over the next 2 years. They literally can't help themselves but just to take more and more of what we are as people, all while telling us they're here to help. And we just keep letting them do it. And now they're coming for our children, and we're surprised. It was, you know, if you went to college, you got indoctrinated. Now it's if you go to high school, you got indoctrinated. Now if you go to elementary school, you got indoctrinated. And they want to put books about sex, promiscuity, and drugs in the schools so they can groom and recruit children at a young age that this is all normalized behavior. And we do nothing but sit here and try to reason with people that are sitting behind some table that were never elected to begin with. There you go.
Is this the natural end state of a hyper-complex system? Like, is this the bloated corpse of a wealthy empire with a massive military?
Well,
Is
I
this
would say that
just
that's correct if we were talking about a massive wealthy empire, but we're talking about the fall of societies normalized across the globe.
Hmm,
This is not just the United States.
yeah.
And every time you have a conversation, I just had one online with a radical leftist that was lying. I said, "You're lying." And they came back with a couple one-liners, and I was like, and then they said, "Well, I'm not going to deal with somebody bullying me and calling me names." And I was like, "I called you a liar, and I asked you to prove your source, and you didn't prove your source, and then you wanted to exit the conversation." Typical of radical leftists that don't have any sort of argument, because that's what they do. They just lie. They use rhetoric and innuendos. But we allow it to happen, Tommy. We allow it to happen, right? And so if we're just talking about the United States and the fall of the United States, I'd say absolutely. But this is a group, this is a secret society inside of our government that has elongated its control through our security apparatuses, through our intelligence units, and then moved that into other parts of this bloated environment. When you talk about cabal or deep state, it's because it's deep. That's why they call it deep. It's not right here. It's not surface. It's not like 2 inches. You can cut it out, scoop the crap out, and all of a sudden you're back to clean water. That's not what we're facing right now. It's much more complicated than that. And so you could say that it's a complex society, and you have people that are out there saying, well, we just added one more, piece of straw to the camel's back. We're actually breaking the proverbial camel's back. Well, that would be fine if you didn't have other things at work right now that show us that the complexities of what's happening right now are actually very simple. The playbook is very simple, right? The Communist Manifesto is a real thing. That what they're trying to do right now by creating a utopian environment that will kill off billions of people around the world is a real thing. And if it wasn't a real thing, let's look at Big Pharma and what it's allowed to do and the fact that it's given qualified immunity. Let's look at our judiciary and the fact that judges are allowed to act with impunity and they are not held accountable for their behavior. Let's look at attorneys that for the most part, even if found to have done something corrupt or outside of the normal qualified uses of their duties or responsibilities, they're given free passes. We could talk about people in the military or the police force that are basically given free passes and then used as patsies when they do hold somebody accountable. So you can see the evil of the apparatus itself that are literally doling out this lawfare or consequences for doing the right thing. And on the other side, you can see them literally destroying the lives of Americans and doing so with a smile on their face and saying that this is justice when they know damn well it's not justice and it doesn't make any sense.
For it to not be the hyper complex system. Well, it is a hyper complex system, but they're hiding it. They're hiding something else in there.
Right.
It's not that the two are mutually exclusive. It's they're hiding it in there that, and I don't know if it's a point that I don't know if it has value or not. I mean, in the sense that it has value and that you should strive to find the truth in all things, but is whether or not they even believe what their core, I guess, ethos is. And it does seem to be at the most, I mean, at the core. And like it's not a surface level thing. It's not somebody you just go and arrest. It is built into the very foundation of the finance, medical, industrial, military, diplomatic, educational core of this entire planet is it's a death cult. It's just a death cult. And be it through abortion or be it through rolling out an experimental vaccine that adversely and disproportionately affects pregnant women, or be it World War III, or be it the slaughtering of national sovereignty, the just general erosion of any sort of homogenous ecosystem where you feel like you belong, whether you're a white Irish guy or from Sudan or Norway or whatever. The idea that it all has to be dissolved, that all energy production itself is that it is evil, that even the simple freedom of being able to drive around in your own car is evil, that it needs to be a battery powered thing that has a kill switch in it. At the very core, the thesis of it all is that it's a death cult. And I, I think that's maybe the hardest thing to get people to wrap their heads around is this is not the same as this is somebody that disagrees with you. And it's part of being an adult in a mature society that you go, hey, I agree to disagree. It's very different when it's a literal death cult and their number one priority is, I don't know, to have children exposed to men in thongs with fake tits. Like you have to acknowledge what this is. This isn't I vote Reagan and he votes Carter and we shake hands and it's a great this isn't that. There is, hey, I want a normal job with a normal family in a normal neighborhood. And then there's you need to cut your cock and balls off and let this creature that should be shot instead teach your children. And I think that's maybe the hardest hurdle is if you don't acknowledge it for what it is, there's absolutely no diagnosis or plan of action that can be made. If you just say and I'm guilty of that myself, of being like, oh well, agree to disagree. It's taken me quite some time to reach a point where it's like, hey man, I totally get agree to disagree. Family members, friends, hey, whatever. We're all from different walks of life. Get it, got it good.
No,
There is a genuine
no,
difference. Yes, that's
no.
what I mean.
You don't get to agree to disagree. That's the most
Well, that's what I'm
absurd.
saying is that's what I've realized is it's not. It's not I
Who
vote
came up
this
with
and you
that?
vote that.
Who said
It's
that? Who said that that's even normal? Who said that? How about the fact that why can't social media companies, why would it be, why can't we pass something that says you're not allowed to have bots on social media? If you're found that you have bots on social media, we can shut down your entire social media platform. Why has no one on the left or the right come out with legislation to say we want to shut down bot traffic? You want to know why?
Because they're benefiting from it.
Because the radical left will literally lose the argument 99.999% of the time because they have no basis for backup. The backup that's done now are people that follow certain accounts, watch what they write, and then come in behind them and start piling on the individual. That's what happens, right? That's what bots are designed to do is watch, look at the information that's presented, and then get into the discussion with them. Well, if you got rid of bots, what kind of world we live in? A more honest world where we can at least see who our targets are. But right now you can't see what the target is. Am I wrong?
No.
So these are the issues that I have. I look at this and I go, okay, well, tell me from my perspective, what part of this was not planned? If everything I just said to you, you go back and check it. Go back and check everything that I just said about what happened in 2001, what happened in 2002, what happened in 2003, what happened when they launched Facebook in 2007. Talk about what happened in Afghanistan and Iraq, right? Are they better off than they were when we went into those countries? No, they're in much worse condition now than they were back in 2002. They had a stable economy. They had a stable currency. People had a thriving life. You can look at what happened in Iran prior to the mullah coming in and changing everything there. Every time we get into a radical leftist environment, every single time we get into a radical leftist environment, without question, we find ourselves in a degraded state. And why is it that the people that are actually running that degradation on the society are always nameless and faceless and never given the proper identification inside of the environment? Why?
So they can't be targeted.
Because they can't be targeted. Because what we can see is not really the head of the snake. But until you get to the people that are close to the head of the snake, you'll never find out who they are. George Soros is one of the dumbest human beings known to man. I promise you that man is not smart enough to be doing the things that he's doing across the United States. He is a freaking retard, okay? Just going to tell you right now, he's a retard. Can't finish a sentence. I don't care what language you ask him to finish it in, whether it's Germany or otherwise. He is a patsy. His son, Alex, equally stupid. I would not be surprised, just like Biden, if he literally did not have any control over his social media accounts. That would not surprise me. So why is it that these are the smartest guys in the room? The smartest one that I've run up against right now, who literally has the ability to do social media and run multiple companies, is probably Elon Musk. Now, I want to punch the guy in the face sometimes, frankly, because he stands up for truth while allowing people inside of his apparatus to shut off the voices of truth. They get to pick and choose winners and losers, no different than Google, over what voice is to be heard. Now, Tommy, do this. Go to Google and run Eric Coomer Dominion Voting Systems and see if any of the information, they stripped the entire internet of Eric Coomer other than what they chose to go on to page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way down. Now, the adverse effect of that is that the Eric Coomer that was not the Eric Coomer at Dominion that said, hey, don't worry about it, Trump's not going to win, I made effing sure of it, that was on the Antifa call, that was anti-American, that ran into a building, then lied about it multiple times after getting drunk and then drinking more just to cover up for the fact that he actually had a hit and run, who was let out of a felony count that he should have had for influencing a public official because he's not Tina Peters, so you got to let him go, right? All of those things happen, right? So this guy who did all of this, he's now the pagan saint of morality. Okay, as far as Google's concerned. Now do the same thing and go look up President Trump. Go look up assassination. They literally have developed an entire model of how to destroy our society, and we're letting them do it. We're feeding it.
Yeah, I looked it up last week. I wasn't even trying to look it up. I was just literally trying to find a picture to make a thumbnail. And I typed in President Trump, and I was like, President Trump. I was on the treadmill, and I was like, ASS. I was like, what the hell? And yeah, no, you couldn't look it up. So other than just complete disengagement, how do you remove yourself from this? So, like you can't win a rigged game. If you want to stop losing, you just have to leave the casino. There's no
you have to not play by the rules.
Okay.
Okay, let's go back to the Revolutionary War.
Yeah.
We had the Revolutionary War, and it was us versus the Brits. Actually, that's not true. It was us versus the Brits. It was us versus the Spaniards. It's us versus the French. I mean, it was us versus a lot, bro. It wasn't just redcoats that we were fighting, right? Depends on where you were. How did we win?
Guerrilla warfare.
There you go.
All right.
You want to win? You want to win? You literally have to make them have to rethink the game. How do we win World War II? We rethought the game. And we didn't win it. The United States, I was just having we were just having a podcast where we talked about this, and Dr. Fleming, who has been attacked and they've used lawfare against him, super amazing man, right?
Yeah.
But he said, Joe, we didn't defeat Nazis in World War II. We relocated them.
Yeah, we absorbed them.
We put them inside of our government. We put them inside of our communities. We basically gave them a free pass. People that killed millions and millions and millions of people were basically put out there to pasture. A couple people were used as patsies, but a vast majority of the people that did harm, the people around the world and caused this war, were rewarded. They're some of the wealthiest people around the world today. Now, who financed that war in World War II?
United States. Wall Street.
JP
Morgan Brothers. Yeah.
Right?
Prescott Bush.
And just so you know, this is not hyperbolic statements.
This is all factual. This is factual. Right? Yeah.
And so my issue with where we are right now is that we've allowed for people to lie to us for so long and we haven't stood up. So if we don't get to the place where we start standing up and actually having a conversation about what's real and right in front of us, and get to the guerrilla part, you got to get to the guerrilla part. We got to get to the point where we're just willing to, and I didn't say violence. You don't need violence.
Sure.
Yeah. So this is the issue that I have, that I think that every time we turn around, we never get to the bottom of. We never get to the bottom of the barrel and we say, look, all right, we've cleaned it all out. Now, how do we get rid of these people? How do we get rid of them? Non-violently. And let me tell you something. I pray it never gets to the place where good people are forced to do bad things to bad people. But if we don't start standing together and taking a stand at some point, what are the other options? Are we just going to capitulate to people that are actually taking smallpox and mixing it with Ebola and trying to push it into the marketplace? They've already done it. They've already created it. We're going to wait till they actually launch more bioweapons against the American people and people around the world? Or are they going to allow them to create as much chaos? Or are we going to individually say their name? Are we going to say their name? The people that are responsible for hurting us as Americans and hurting us as a nation and hurting us globally.
Who is it then?
Well, you got to start with the people in power. You got to start with the people in power. You got to write down their names. You got to write down and I'm not just talking about Democrats. You got to talk about Republicans as well. You got to talk about judges. I mean, how many judges have locked up people for 10, 15, 20 years? I mean, look at what happened to, what's his name? Rhodes. The 3%er, man, what's his name?
I don't know.
He wasn't even at January 6th. And they found him guilty of seditious conspiracy. Let me look it up real quick.
Okay.
I remember. Seditious conspiracy. I've met with him several times. Stuart Rhodes.
Stuart Rhodes.
Yeah, Oath Keeper.
18 years.
Yeah, and look at what Wikipedia said about him. He's a seditionist. Because he founded the Oath Keepers, an American far-right anti-government militia. Let me ask you a question, Tommy. Are you anti-American?
No.
Do you believe there should be some sort of government?
Yeah.
You have to, right? I mean, you have to have some form of government that keeps the checks and balances.
Necessary evil, yeah.
Well, it's not a necessary evil. It's a necessary structure that has to happen because without evil, you wouldn't need it.
Sure.
But the reality of it is unless you're a nihilist that looks towards opening up and creating pain on the average everyday human being, you have to have some structure of government. So there's no anti-government. You just want it to serve its function in the minimalistic way possible. So it allows for people to engage in their society, right?
Sure.
Equal opportunity, but still set some ground rules so that you don't burn the entire world down or have something that looks terrible. You got to have, and there are necessary evils, I believe, that cause people to maybe stand up and act like they have more power than they do. And you have to tolerate some of that. That's why you have humility. But overall, nobody's anti-government. We want to get back to the ideals that supplant some of the elitists that have been put in front of us and told, hey, these are your leaders, give up 56 cents on every dollar to them so they can fund wars to kill people all over the world. Sorry, I just fed you a lot for the last hour.
Like I said, I love it. How do we name the people then? So if it's not, Soros, if it's I always do agree with that, is whoever we know of, they aren't it by virtue of the fact we know 'em. Is it possible to ever know who is pulling the strings, or is it an
Yes.
ever changing amorphous blob?
Yeah. So listen, the devil has to tell you who they are. The devil has to tell you who they are. You just have to pay attention to who the devil is. You have to pay attention to the smaller names that are actually popping up in multiple environments. I mean, you look at people like Hillary Clinton. You look at people like the heads of different organizations that have literally done massive amounts of harm. You look at people in government like Susan Rice. I mean, this woman is a psychopath, not just a sociopath, a psychopath who has made up a entire narrative. You look at guys like Eric Coomer. Here's a guy literally that I picked out of a hat. Let's just call it what it is. Picked him out of a hat. Bloop. Do you believe that? Do you believe out of whatever it was, 20,000 employees, that I just picked Eric Coomer out of a hat when he was on that call?
Hmm.
No, you don't believe that. But here's a guy that literally is in the shadows that is a unhinged person. He wrote a story about raping his wife, making her bark like a dog, and peed on her. He wrote an entire, and then he published it. That Eric Coomer is running 50% of the votes of the American people. That's responsible for the adjudication process. Literally is saying that he's being defamed by me, while has a picture of the Church of Satan's tattoo artist on his arm. That guy is the thing that should control the mores of society. How do you feel about that?
No.
You sure?
Yes.
They will tell you who they are.
Hmm.
I don't believe that George Soros is the know all, the be all, but I believe that there are people on our side that are Republicans that are closely related to Soros,
Mm-hmm.
like the one in Texas. What's his name? One Eye Patch Man.
Um, um, Fuck.
I can't remember.
Yeah, I patch McCain. What's his um
He spent lots of time.
what the fuck is that? Just eye patch Congressman
I
Dan
can't remember.
Crenshaw.
Dan Crenshaw. Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to completely no, I patch McCain, yeah.
I mean, this is a guy that stood out and prevented Eddie Gallagher, who was on trial for doing his job as a Navy SEAL, who did everything he could to stand in the way of justice for Eddie Gallagher. That guy, the guy that stood up against goodness, a guy that's good. Now, is Eddie Gallagher perfect? No. But is he a good man? Yes. But he stood in the way of that. That is Dan Crenshaw, who behind the scenes, like a coward, goes and lobbies to create environments where no one will talk to certain people, like me. But then you have other people behind the scenes that are going to people like Lauren Boebert and everyone else saying, you got to stay away from Joe Oltmann. Yeah, you got to stay away from him because he's a right-wing extremist. Yet I've never been extreme about anything, Tommy. But I am very, very astute on what's happening because it all mathematically has to tie together.
Mm.
There you go.
Is the 100,000 foot view kind of the one I think we probably all know deep down is that the world in itself is you cannot enact a utopia here. You can be the best person you can be, but the world itself is flawed, and it'll never be polished, clean, and mint condition. And that there is a grander plan. There's God's plan, and you can do good here. But the point of being here is the good you do, whether or not you're in a utopia or in World War III and anything in between. It is because even I was best case scenario, they don't steal the election, that all the wars stop, or all hold hands. Okay, you still die of old age, and even if you don't, the universe dies a heat death.
Yeah.
It seems like it's coded into the very fabric of the reality we're in that this thing, it's a piece of fruit left on the table. It does decay, and it's not a bad thing if you understand what it means. What it means then is that you don't set your soul into this place that can fall apart. It's not made of granite, it's made of food that will rot, get covered in flies and maggots, and turn into dirt. What do you do in this world? How do you fight evil? How do you work for God? And that's kind of, I think, the spoiler of it all, right?
I think that's what we're supposed to be drawn towards. Is
Mm.
there's a saying that that I'd like to say that I live my life by. There are two important there are two important times, most important days in your life. Okay? Two most important days in your life are the day you were born and the day you find out why.
Mm.
My find out why was in 2020. And the day that I was born, put me here. And I think that's the thing we have to look towards in each one of us, that we have to be able to make a decision. And every single time in history that people have decided to stand up against evil, we've won. So I gotta Jack. I have one
Yeah,
more.
I was gonna say before, and it's okay if you can't. I was gonna say, could you wrap this up with a prayer? You've done it before, and I always thoroughly I leave them feeling much better. So
Yeah,
after this episode, I need you to leave me with a prayer. I need you to leave me with a kiss on the cheek.
I love it, love it, love it. All right, let's pray. Father God, thank you. Thank you for Tommy. Thank you for the show that he does every day. Thank you for his commitment to you. Thank you for the path that he put himself on and the courage that he has every day to wake up and do the right thing and to be on the path that you put him on. Father, I thank you for the people that are listening. I thank you for the people in our society that have refused to capitulate to evil. For those that are brave and are willing to be selfless and sacrifice much in order to get us to a place where we can protect future generations. I truly feel, Father, we are in the beaches of Normandy moments, that we're running towards the beach. As we see our brothers and sisters adversely affected by the evil in our society, I can't help but be proud to walk shoulder to shoulder with so many good men and women, so many people who are faithful. Father, I ask you to give us the strength. Give Tommy the strength that he may continue to push forward, that he may hear that voice, that still, quiet voice, where you tell him which path to take, what direction to go, and when not to pick up the sword or lay down the sword. Father, I ask you to bless Tommy with the amount of courage that is necessary to overcome those evildoers that would step in his way. I ask you, Father, to bring other people around him that he may feel protected and he may feel like he's walking a path with good and righteous men and women. That we may set aside petty differences, we may act in humility, we may know when to serve, and we may also know when to lead. Father, I ask you to bless the people that are listening, that they may be unburdened from the hopelessness that consumes so many. That they may see their value in this journey and may step in the gap between those to be harmed and those to be harmed, in a place of interposition. Help us, Father, that we may continue to fight, regardless of the consequences, that we may love our family and friends, and we may do everything we can to follow you. I ask for all of these things, Father, humbly in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Joe. That
Absolutely.
you gotta build me up after that podcast. You hit me with the zeitgeist of an hour.
That's a lot. There's a
It
lot of
is. It
but
is.
the truth is hard to eat. I got to get going. I got
Yeah,
Patrick
yes, sir.
work.
I'll let you go. Guys, please go in the description. You can find the link to his podcast. All the good stuff is in there, as well as DCF guns and DCF buns. Joe, till next time, sir. Thank you so much. Guys, thank